Hello everybody, welcome back to Daybreak Coins, and today I'm going to be showing you some kind of random bits and bobs of actual paper currency that I've got. So it kind of ranges from US to Canada to a whole bunch of different random countries to, some note geld and just kind of some other stuff. So yeah, let's get started. I'm just going to kind of go from the stack and just kind of send it. So here we go. This is a fancy serial number, so this is a radar or a palindrome. So what that means is that from this side to this side, if you read it from left to right or right to left, it reads the same. So this is 188668881, and then if you read it backwards, it's the same. So it's 188668881. Something like this has a little bit of premium. This is probably, I would say it's probably a $10 to $15 note. Serial numbers, some people really collect them, but sometimes they take a while to sell. Here are a couple note gelds. I gotta take these out of the holder really quick. So note gelds were issued in Germany, mostly after the First World War, whenever the economy was in shambles. So they were essentially artistic banknotes. Banknotes, I say kind of in quotes. They had a face value, and people would pay kind of the local governments. The local governments would make these, and then people would pay for them as kind of a collectible item. And then they would expire at some point. So cities would use these to actually get funding after the war to kind of rebuild and hopefully not kind of be as poor and as a bad financial situation. So each city had kind of their own issues. So this is a 50 Pfennig note. This is 50 Pfennig, which is 50 Pfennig, which is kind of essentially like the German cents. You can see this kind of religious figure on it. And, I mean, there are just thousands and thousands of different designs. And then here's kind of one. Kind of got a castle, and then the castle under siege. So, that one's just kind of an interesting one. And yeah, so kind of, I guess, more to the history of these. They started issuing them in kind of 1920-ish, so this is a 1921, or maybe even 1919, and those were all the smaller denominations. But whenever the hyperinflation eventually came in, so in the 1923 especially, and the German mark was deteriorating so much that you would see note gelds for, thousands and hundreds of thousands of marks. So it's just kind of interesting to see kind of how their economy deteriorated in a banknote's history. Sometimes they would also make these notes, like artisans would make them in linen and stuff. So they'd make, a 500 mark note, and it would be made out of linen, or there's some really rare types made out of aluminum foil or leather. So yeah, there's, a huge kind of collectible market there. Here is a generic silver certificate. So this is actually backed by silver in the federal government before they kind of did away with it. Fairly cheap note, but always kind of interesting to see. And I have just dropped it on the floor. Let me pick it up really quick. On to the next one. Here's kind of some Canadian stuff. If you're from Canada, this is probably isn't that cool, but they are some older types, so. Another Canada 5. Here are more note gelds, so they would actually issue them in sets. Here you can see this is a 10, 50, 75 Pfennig set. So I can't remember the name of the city off the top of my head, and by that I mean I can't pronounce it. But it starts with an O, and it's a really long name. But I thought this was a really interesting design. So the kind of story behind this is whenever the Black Plague swept through Europe, this city was spared. So this depiction right here is the Black Plague, is kind of the skeleton with his scythe, and he is kind of trying to kill everybody in the town, but it actually missed. And so there's a festival that goes on in this town every, I'm going to say 10 years or so. I could be incorrect on that, but it's every, so many years, and it employs the whole town, and they have a festival about, the Black Plague skipping over them. So just a really fascinating history behind this. But once again, this is another note geld, and they would issue them in kind of sets. So this is a 75, a 50, and a 25. Next, we have some older Canadian banknotes. Here's a 2. This is from the 1954 series. I do have kind of a couple older notes, but here's a 1967 series. Just show the reverse of it. Here's a 1954 series. It looks almost the same. Just in case you're not familiar with Canadian currency, you can see a little bit of a difference, but different vignette on the back, but not a whole lot of difference. Here we go. Got the next one. Here's kind of an older one. This is the 1937 series, and this has, I can't remember who this guy is, but this is actually, it's got this interesting vignette on the back, and this is actually from the Canadian Banknote Company, so it's kind of cool. Here's a more modern Canadian dollar, which I believe they stopped producing the $1 note. They just make loonies now, which kind of teach their own, I guess. Here's a Singapore $1. So just kind of interesting. So big satellite dish, another Canadian note. I believe this one is Chinese. This is a 5.1, I think. But kind of a cool note, that's for sure. Here's kind of an interesting Hawaii note. If you don't know, whenever the U.S. was at war, during World War II, they made the Hawaii note. So it says Hawaii, it's a brown seal, and on the back it's got Hawaii printed over it. And they did this so if we actually lost control of the Hawaiian Islands, that they couldn't capture this currency and use it in the, continental U.S. So we could essentially just say every Hawaii note is out of decommission and is no longer worth anything. And, they couldn't actually use this currency that they stole from us. So it's kind of an interesting thing. They also had the same one with the North Africa note. The North Africa note is blue and yellow. So really interesting part of history. Here's another cool one. This is a fractional currency note. So this is 15 cents. This is from sometime in the, I'm going to say 1863 right here. See if I can focus a little bit better. But yeah, so this is a 15-cent fractional note that's actually issued by the government. During the Civil War, there wasn't actually enough small change to go around because everybody was hoarding coinage because they were scared that wherever they were, whether it be the South or the Union, that if they lost the war, they would just have worthless paper. So they were all hoarding their, metal coins, like their silver, their gold coins, and their copper coins, because they could still be traded even if the paper went belly up. So there's actually a huge premium to this current or to coins compared to this currency, but it was definitely needed in daily commerce. So I believe there's 4 or 5 different series, and I can't remember exactly which one this is, but this is a later series, I believe. This is probably the 4th or the 5th series, if I remember correctly. Kind of just to put it into perspective really quick, at the beginning of the war, a Union soldier made $11 a month. So 15 cents, is quite a bit of money. And I think towards the end of the Civil War, the inflation kind of got bad and it was more up to $16 a month. But fighting for your country for $16 a month is not very much. Here's kind of some Indian currency. This is a 10 rupee note. Kind of interesting. Another Canadian note. Here is a old Bank de Mexico. This is an un peso. This is the old currency. This is a 1967 issue. So one interesting thing, as you can see down here, this is actually made by the American Banknote Company. So a lot of people don't know that the American Banknote Company actually produced a lot of currency for not only the US in its infancy, but also for a lot of other countries. And I believe they might still even today. There's a lot of companies that they actually, or a lot of countries that they actually produce banknotes for. Here's another Singapore $1. Here is a Singapore $10. I really like these colorful notes compared to some of the, normal US stuff. Pretty cool. Here's a $50 Singapore note. I'm 99% sure this one is Chinese. I think this is one yuan. Yeah, 1 yuan. Oh, here is a oldie Canadian. So this is pretty cool. I won this in an auction a long time ago with a lot of the other Canadian stuff that I've got. But this is the $2 Bank of Canada note. This is the issue of 1935. And this one is actually made by the British American Banknote Company, Limited in Ottawa. So that one's pretty cool. And look at this old picture of the Queen. But yeah, I think that one is definitely one of my favorite Canadian notes that I own. I think there are some more cool Canadian notes out there, but that one's pretty interesting to me. And here's another $2 one, kind of in that green series that we saw earlier. This is the 1937 series, and this one is printed by the British American Banknote Company Limited. So it's kind of interesting for some of those to kind of see how the companies that are producing it change over time. Here's another 100 rupee note. I got that security strip. And then kind of some of the more common notes that I've got that I just don't have sleeved actually. More circulated. So I've got a Barbados set. We'll just go through these one by one, I guess. So this is from Barbados. It's an island in the Caribbean. Kind of on the northeast side of South America. Kind of an interesting polymer note with that clear plastic. So that was the 2. Here's the 5. Once again, another polymer note. And here is finally the $20 note. This is the highest denomination I've got. Another polymer note. Here's the Parliament Buildings of Bridgetown. So, just kind of cool. Here, next, we have a Italian 500 lire. I believe this would have been circulating. This is a 1966 issue. So, I mean, something like that is, kind of a bargain bin item, but still interesting. Is Bank de Portugal. Here is the Japanese government note. So this is a 1 peso. This one is pretty heavily damaged. But this was actually whenever the Japanese government, during World War II, would invade, they would issue these as kind of circulating currency around the places that they conquered. Here is a 10 rupee note from India. You can see kind of their collection of animals. Got the tiger and the elephant and the rhino. I believe these are Thai, from Thailand, or they're somewhere in kind of the Southwest Asia. I believe these are Thai, though, if I remember correctly. This one's kind of got some staining on it. This one is the 20, and that last one was the 50. Or these could actually be Cambodian as well. I'm not entirely sure. Bank of India, 500 rupees. This is, $10 exchange rate, probably. But still kind of an interesting note. And here is a 50 rupee. I got some writing on it, but that's how it is. Here, this is kind of another interesting one. I got 2 notes from the El Banco de Mexico. So, this is the 1981 series, and I believe these have also been demonetized. But Mexican banking is kind of a fascinating topic with how much influence they had on the American economy with their reals and their New World silver. And then finally, I've got some Germany hyperinflation notes. So if you've ever seen the kid holding the wheelbarrow, I believe this is the note for that. So this is I believe this is 20 marks. Let me read it really quick. 20 mark. See it on the reverse. 20 mark. And you can see I just have a stack of these. And these are a fairly common banknote, but they're still cool. So I'll just show you one and then call it a video. But yeah. See if we can focus. There we go. Really cool. Kind of a large banknote. Compare it to something like a Canadian banknote, where it's a little bit bigger in width, but it's not quite as long. But yeah, a cool banknote nonetheless. I hope you guys saw something that you haven't seen before, or I hope I inspired you to start collecting something new. So anyways, have a good one. Thank you.